Hello students, welcome to week 1 of our art lesson. Today we're going to be doing an art with the use of color. This is an example of what yours might look like, although there's lots of variations that you can use for yours, and I'll get to those as we go through. For today's art you will need newspaper, white paper, and then a coloring medium. It can be crayons, markers, paints, colored pencils. Could even be makeup. I don't want you to run out and get something. Use whatever you've got in your house. If you don't have any of those things, if you have food that's color, you could use food too. Just don't run out and buy something. Use whatever you've got. If you don't have any of those things, if you have food coloring, you can use food coloring and a couple of drops of water. So be a little creative. But don't buy anything. Today we're going to start by talking about color. Color really evokes lots of different emotions in us, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what other artists have done with the use of color. Now keep in mind that the meaning of color depends on the culture that you were raised in. Think about Halloween and the colors that you associate with Halloween. Think about Christmas and the colors you associate with Christmas. Valentine's Day, when I say the 4th of July, what colors come to mind? So keep in mind that colors and the meaning of colors have a lot to do with where you were raised and the culture that you live in. So I'm going to show you an example of an artist's rendering of the use of red. In this, the death of Jesus, there's a lot of passion, a lot of fiery, angry, so you see some angry faces there. A lot of time red means passion, anger, excitement. Think about what red means to you. Here is an example of the use of orange, one of my favorite colors. This is also an example of what you might choose to do when we get to the coloring page. Look at their use of color throughout the page. And there isn't really a rhyme or reason that we might see, but I'm certain there was one for the artist. Orange oftentimes means energy, excitement. It's a subtler way of bringing in energy to a piece that's not quite as fierce as red. In the same book, I have an example of yellow. A lot of times yellow is thought of as a bright color. Think of the sun and the energy. Certainly it's a happy color, as you can see in this use of color in the bottom musical number. And I'm going to show you the use of blue. Think about blue. This is actually a picture of a blue dancer. Look at all the movement that you see. Blue is often a calming color, but it can mean sadness. It can mean despair. In this particular piece, I think for me it feels more like movement and calmness, and I can almost see the gentle dancing of this dancer. In the same book, I'm going to show you the use of brown. We think of things that are dead, lifeless, very stark. This picture is very stark. This person in this picture does not look warm and welcoming. Brown tends to be the color of things that are dead in nature. So sometimes we can invoke colors of doom, feelings of doom with the color brown. Along those same lines, I want you to look at this. This is a rendering of gray, but I love the choice of color and where they put it in this particular picture. This is, the title of this is Manhattan. And now that I say the name, can you see the skyscrapers and the busyness? This is an example of what you might choose to have your picture look like in a moment when you get to use color. I want to show you the use of another example of orange. This picture looks very happy and alive and energetic. And then here's a picture of the use of green. Green is a picture we often associate with things that are alive, things that are living. It's also a very calming, tranquil kind of color. This picture is a sample of blue, but I also want you to look at how they placed color on this particular sheet, because that's going to give you an idea of, maybe give you an idea of what you want to do in a moment as we put color on our page. And the example that I'm showing there, composition, shows how they use color but using dots. You can maybe use a Q-tip or a toothpick to put dots on your picture and fill it up. A couple more examples. Here we have black, very formal looking. Black often is death, doom, it's the absence of, and can really send a very formal message when we use black. And then another example of blue, very calming space, serene, calm, peaceful. And then I'm going to show you one more sample shot. You can see the use of color on this page, very vibrant, very geometrical in some spaces, but very loose in others and not symmetrical. So before we get into our painting, I want you to write down on the left side of a piece of paper, sad, angry, mad, afraid, any emotions that you might think of as negative. And on the right side of the paper, I want you to put down what you would consider happy emotions, happy, joy, energy, excitement. Here's an example of that. And then underneath each emotion, I want you to put the color that you associate with that emotion. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Here's one. Here's my 5-year-old did this, and here's what he thinks the colors are that he chose. Here's another one. I did this art lesson with my family, and so I'm giving you lots of examples of what they chose. You can see that for some of these emotions, they aren't just one color. They might be multiple colors. Here's an example where the colors, the emotions, weren't just one color, they were a mixture, because sometimes our emotions aren't just one emotion. Sometimes they're a mixture of many things. And then lastly, this is my example, and you can see that there's some similarities, some overlap, but slightly different in the emotions that I put down. So take some time, you can hit pause to name some emotions, 5 on each side, 5 quote-unquote negative emotions and on the left side, and 5 quote-unquote happy emotions on the right side, and then what colors you associate with those emotions. So go ahead and take the time to do that before we move on. I'm just going to keep on filming though, so you can hit pause. The next thing that I want you to do is get a piece of white paper and then choose your medium. Watercolor, crayon, marker, colored pencil, whatever you choose. And you're just going to paint on the page what you feel. Here's an example. Here's one. This person actually did a drawing of what they felt. It was a drawing of a house. And that's certainly, you can use your artist eye. Here's another example of how this person was feeling. So it can be abstract, but it can be something specific too. You get to decide. There's no right or wrong in art. Here's another one in which this person used marker and then shapes and designs. You can choose to do it that way also. Here's one that's still wet, so I'm going to be careful as I show it. Use of watercolor. Love watercolor because as it dries, it takes on a different form. And then mine. So how are you feeling? So take some time to do that. If you're using a wet medium, give it time to dry. I'm going to go ahead and hit pause until you're done with that. When you're done, you can come back to the next step. The next step is to take some newspaper and take any piece of newspaper, cut out a shape if you want to cut out a circle or an oval or a square, rectangle. In mine, I actually cut out my favorite shape, which is a coffee cup. But you can choose to do anything that you want. And then, as you can see in this example, circle any words that strike you. It might be a phrase, it might be words, and then cross out all the other words. So here's an example of that here. I'm going to show you another example. And here, this person cut out a square and then circled some things and blotted out the others. This person chose a picture, and then they highlighted the parts of the article that they wanted and then colored out the other parts. So remember to use your artist eye. This example is just some phrases that were cut out and then glued on. So you could do that too. Just look at the newspaper for words or phrases that catch your eye, and you can glue those on independently as is shown in this example. And then lastly, this last one that's still drying, there was a long article, and then they colored parts of it that they wanted and actually melded it in this picture that I'm ruining because I'm holding it upright. But I think it's very clever. So that's going to be kind of how you end up. Lots of different ideas and samples for you. This was the original that I thought of, but you have an artist eye and you get to make, and you can either use this as an inspiration, tailor it your own way, as you saw that my family did. But go ahead and do this and then send me a picture. I'd love to see what you have. There's a discussion board for you to post your picture and then write about it. Tell me a little bit about it. Anything that you want. And it's a discussion board so you can comment on other students. Remember our good manners. Always be respectful in our comments, but it's our way of kind of connecting with each other. So take advantage of this opportunity to connect and discuss and share with each other in this manner. Remembering that this week's theme week is Color Week, and you can see on my PowerSchool page that I've posted the different themes for each day, and I'll also send out an email with all of that information. Love to see pictures about how you are embracing our themes this week, and I'd love to hear your ideas of any themes that you might have. Take care, everybody, and I will send another video next Sunday.